Welcome in, welcome in. A second. Park this bitch. What's up? What's up? All right, we're gonna do a quick deck clock decode. Where are you, honey bunny? Hold on. There it is. Where's that D-clock, man? I tell you, the Matrix fucks with me, man. I already had it set up. You know they had to reset the page on me. Come on now. My service is shady in here. This it? This ain't it. This it? This ain't it. What the fuck? I can't find it. There we go.
October 9th, 2025, but it was posted yesterday on October 8th. This message says total repo 1913, and
all right,
guys, we got
just
a
have a listen.
Message today is October 9th, 2025, but it was posted yesterday on October 8th. Message says total repo 1913, and we've got the armed knight over with the USA Treasury on it, and an emblem that says USA Treasury Repo Squad. We also have Fort Knox in the background right there. The golden safe lock on it. And we know that Fort Knox holds the gold, but there's never been an audit. They've been talking about doing one for a really long time. On the other side, we have the Fed banking cartel, a lot of commodities, things that hold a store of value. And I'm actually surprised they put precious gems on there. Things like diamonds, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, things like that, because they do hold a store of value as well. Now, it's interesting that the US Deck Clock posted this the day before silver reached its all-time high. It actually surpassed $50 today, which is a huge milestone. I want to explain the rise in precious metals and how it ties into total repo. Now, not only people, but establishments and banking institutions are turning to precious metals because the fiat dollar is becoming less valuable. Now, the fact that silver breached that all-time high and is going past $50 is a huge indicator that things are not going well for the current financial system. I wanted to go over this real quick. If the $50 breakout turns parabolic, $50 to $100, this may signal a global monetary reset phase or a sharp acceleration of the flight from fiat dynamic. That's when gold, silver, and Bitcoin often enter a synchronized bull phase while stocks and bonds experience significant volatility. Now, as silver surpasses $50, it would not just be a number on a chart, it would likely signal erosion of confidence in the fiat systems. We've been talking about this. Stress in the derivatives market, broader inflation and commodity repricing, a potential inflection point in global finance. Now, tying in government bonds and fiat currency, the rise in the silver price reflects waning trust in fiat and bond markets. Now, things to look out for: bond yields may spike as investors dump debt for hard assets. The dollar index, the United States dollar, may weaken relative to commodities, and foreign central banks could rebalance away from treasuries toward gold and silver. The systemic risk derivatives unwind could spill into repo market, creating liquidity crunches similar to 2008, but commodity driven. Now, What is the repo market? The repo market, short for repurchase agreement market, is where banks, financial institutions, and the Fed borrow and lend short-term cash, usually overnight, in exchange for collateral, typically U.S. Treasury securities. How it works: a bank sells Treasury bonds to another party with a promise to buy them back the next day at a slightly higher price. This provides short-term liquidity, cash, to the financial sector in modern fiat finance. And why it matters is because it's how the Fed controls interest rates and money supply indirectly. A spike or freeze in a repo market can signal a liquidity crisis. How the repo market aligns with the image. The image uses the term total repo and portrays a knight labeled USA Treasury, symbolizing the Treasury stepping in with repo power. The Fed banking cartel, representing private central banking interests since 1913 when the Fed was established. The contrast between Ponzi scheme versus justice, suggesting a system at a breaking or transition.
All right, this is a little bit long, but I do want to point something out. You can see here, she says the knight is labeled USA Treasury, okay? I just did a video telling you how Marshall Hayner is the knight in the riddles. Funny enough, she has the knight and treasure, okay? What is treasury? Treasury equals treasure. Treasure equals gold and silver. All right? What does Marshall Hayner have? Metals, okay? Metal pay. They're all connected.
Point. Gold bars, jewels, buildings, pointing to real tangible assets. A move from fiat USD to an asset-backed digital currency, for example, something akin to a treasury dollar or gold silver-linked token, would almost certainly pass through the repo system. Fed's control over repo is how it maintains the fiat system. To transition away, control over repo flows would need to shift, likely from the Fed to the Treasury. Treasury securities are the primary repo collateral. If a new digital asset backed by gold, silver, or commodities is introduced, the collateral structure of repo transactions would change. Much of the fiat liquidity today is based on leveraged debt instruments. In an asset-backed transition, some of that debt may be canceled. We've talked about applies biblically, you guys. The shofar, or ram's horn, was blown at the Rams game in America, you guys, on the 2nd, which was the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur, during this government shutdown. That announces the Jubilee, which references a cancellation of debts, you guys. All of this is happening right now. I'm just going over how all of this applies. So again, in an asset-backed transition, some of that debt may be canceled, converted to asset-backed reserves, repriced under new collateral rules. The repo reset moment, a liquidity crisis in the repo market, could act as the trigger event, forcing monetary restructuring. Something similar happened in September 2019. A sharp repo spike caused the Fed to step in with emergency injection. What is happening now with Trump and Jerome Powell and all of these federal workers being laid off or fired? There is a huge transitioning happening right in front of our faces, and not a lot of people are paying attention to it. But we can see it in the rise of the price in gold and silver. That is a direct effect. Now, the phrase total repo in this imagery could be interpreted as a complete repossession or restructuring of the Fed's balance sheet mechanisms. Liquidity spigot bypassing the Fed. A monetary reset where debt-based liquidity is replaced by asset-backed digital currency, a symbolic return to sound money represented by gold, silver, and tangible assets. This would align with scenarios where fiat systems heavily leveraged through derivatives and repo contracts reach a breaking point, forcing sovereign restructuring monetary issuance. The U.S. debt clock total repo image portrays a clash between Fed-controlled liquidity and Treasury power. In a reset scenario, repo markets would be a primary battlefield transitioning from debt-backed liquidity to asset-backed digital currency. Gold, silver, and tangible assets could replace debt as collateral, restructuring the entire financial plumbing beneath the surface. But where are we at in the phase of a financial reset? Because there are phases. Phase one would be the trigger, which the spark could have been earlier funding stresses or repo spike. We seem to be in the containment attempt pre-decision zone, which is phase two heading towards phase three. The system is showing strain, and powerful actors, the Fed and the Treasury, are already deploying liquidity tools to prevent a collapse. If the silver move continues upward and volatility repo stress accelerate, we might cross into phase three, which is the structural decision point soon, when the policy fork must be chosen, more bailouts or a reset path. So here's phase one, which was the trigger. Symptoms: repo spikes, margin sells, dash for cash, forced unwind. We have already gone through phase one because the signs of stress and repo rate volatility are present. Phase two is containment attempts. The symptoms: Fed injecting liquidity, easing rules, backstops, patching plumbing. We see the symptoms now. Yes, the Fed is stepping in. Repo tools are active, but Jerome Powell does not want to budge with Trump's requests to lower the rates. Phase three is the structural decision point. Public signals of a reset path, policy shift towards alternative collateral frameworks. This is where they decide if there will be a reset, and they would announce it. It's saying we're not fully there yet, no explicit public commitment to overhaul system. So we're in mid-phase two with the potential to cross the threshold into phase three if conditions worsen or if silver asset pressure accelerates, which it will. I want to bring you guys back to this debt clock message, which was a future headliner. It says federal marshals raid Federal Reserve building in NYC, New York City, in search of looted USA gold. We have the U.S. Treasury repo squad right there, and an interesting date, a future date of October 13th, 2025. Which is coincidentally the end of the Feast of Tabernacle, which goes into the 8th day. Is the very last day of the feast season biblically. And remember, we are to the Federal Reserve building in NYC.
You see that? Marshall's name is there. Okay? You can talk all the shit. You can talk all the shit you want about XPR or whatever. About how XRP is king. But you don't see anything about Bragg Arlinghouse's name anywhere around these words, okay? Marshall. Okay?
I see New York City in search of looted USA gold. We have the U.S. Treasury.
You gotta be kidding me. I pressed the button and it fucking resetted the whole video. Can I find it? Can I find it? Can I find it again? Your mother's dirty ass.
Message today. So where are we at in the phase of a fight? Fully there yet? USA gold. We have the U.S. Treasury there, and an interesting date, a future.
Now I want to show you here. I already told you how Marshall is the knight rider. Marshall is the knight rider. You see this? You know what this is? This is a badge. A Marshall badge. A U.S. Marshall badge. U.S. Marshall badge. And where is it next to? It's next to the knight. It's next to the knight. And who is the knight? Knight rider. Marshall Hayner. Look at the fucking Marshall badge here. You see that?
Future date of October 13th, 2025, which is coincidentally the end of the Feast of Tabernacle, which goes into the 8th day. Is the very last day of the feast season, biblically. And remember, we already have had Jubilee horn or the shofar blown at the Rams game on the Feast of Trumpets, you guys, announcing to the land in America of the Jubilee year. Our debts are canceled. The Feast of Tabernacles started on October 6th and goes into October 13th. Then from the 13th to the 14th is the 8th day, which represents new beginnings. It marks the end of the harvest and the start of eternity with God. And like circumcision on the 8th day, it points to a people fully set apart. Unlike the 7-day Feast of Tabernacles with all nations, the 8th day is just God and his people, personal, eternal communion. John chapter 7, verse 37 says, on the last and greatest day of the festival, Jesus stood and said in a loud voice, let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink. This was spoken on the 8th day.
The best way to end something is to let
Did I totally miss what she just said? She said something about rubies and jewels, right? Did I miss that, or did you hear that?
This message says total repo 1913, and we've got put precious gems.
Here we go.
A lot of commodities, things that hold U.S. debt clock, the gold, but there's never been an audit. They've been talking about doing one for a
She's
really
got
long
precious
time.
gems here.
On the other side, we have the Fed, banking cartel, a lot of commodities, things that hold a store of value to them. And I'm actually surprised they put precious gems on there. Things like diamonds, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, things like that.
So you heard it. She said rubies, right? I want to show you something. That was the whole point of this video. So they're showing you those particular things, right? And she remembers they're showing you rubies and stuff like that, right? I'm going to show you a screenshot. I'm gonna show you. No. Okay, so you heard her say, right? Debt clock, this, that, and the third, blah, 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 and how they're doing with rubies, pressure, right? Gems and all that. Proverbs, right? And rubies. Nothing you desire can compare to her. All right? She refers to wisdom, personified as a valuable treasure that is worth more than any earthly possession, fame, or luxury. Okay? That's 315. Proverbs, I'm thinking pronouns, right? Now, how powerful is Proverbs? Okay. Now we get Proverbs, right? Proverbs is considered powerful for its practical guidance on living a righteous and effective life. And you can read the rest. Blase, 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 yada, 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 yada. All right? But Proverbs is considered powerful, okay? For living in righteousness and effective life. All right? So that particular verse, 3:15, okay, Proverbs, very powerful, 3:15, and this is where they talk about rubies. As you watch that lady's video, she also talks about rubies and this, that, and the third. Why at this particular date is, do you know what date that is? Let's have a look. Hold on. Let's have a look. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. 315. 315. The 315th day. We just read 315 Proverbs, talking about rubies, this and that. We just listened to the lady speaking about rubies, this and that. It's November 11th, as the same date we said before. All right? 315, talking about rubies, talking about this, that, and the third. Also, you got that 35 in there, precious metals, and you got 1111. So, there are many rubies. Yeah, well, good for crypto liking. So there you have it, my friends. Whatever, I'm going to stick to November 11th. We see what happens. November 1st, we'll see what happens. See what happens. You know what? The people that start taking up space on here, they're just talking out their ass, I'm going to start fucking blocking you. That's it. I don't usually do that shit, but you know what? Just fucking a waste of space right now. Waste of space. You're not doing anything, producing anything. Matter of fact, this guy right here, we don't give a fuck about. Oh, see you later, alligator. My man, you just keep talking caca, and I don't want to keep reading the bullshit. So you can do whatever you want with that information right there. Like I say, she talks about this and that. She mentions rubies and stuff like that. And I just happened to come through the verse of 315, which adds up to November 11th. Hey, something happens, beautiful. If something doesn't happen, even more beautiful. It is what it is. We're just having fun here in this channel. And I'm out of here. So, people, behave, be safe, get home safely.